Hey folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to episode 2 of our preview for Sid Meier's Civilization 7. As a reminder, this preview coverage is limited to 1 hour of gameplay, which I'm splitting up into some videos because this way I can do a little bit of chatter before we start and after we start, while being limited to just 10 minutes in this particular episode of actual gameplay footage. Again, I'll have some chapter markers down below if you want to skip immediately to that. Last episode, we start ourselves off as Egypt. We're playing as Hatshepsut. We have established our starting city. We also picked up a quest to go and disperse an independent village. Now, I haven't talked about independent villages really. What are they? Independent villages fill the role of both barbarians and city-states from previous versions of Civ. These independent villages can be neutral, in which case they are just kind of relaxed and they're a lot easier to defend, or they can start off as hostile, which means they more or less act a lot like barbarian encampments. They will spawn out lots of different military units. They will come and harass you. They will try to conquer your cities and kill your units and that sort of thing. You can go to war with the neutral ones if you want, and there might be ways to improve relationships with the hostile ones. I'm actually going to flip into the game right now and start my gameplay timer. Done. We got 10 minutes to go. We're going to try to go really fast. So I did explore to the southwest over here. I did find Shengal, which is indeed a independent nation. They started off aggro. You can see if I spent enough influence, which is this currency over here, I could actually befriend them and potentially push to the point of actually getting them to be giving me bonuses, like sort of like city-states did in Civ 6, for example. But also, I could even get to the point where I annex these people. However, I have chosen war instead. I have 3 Medjays in position to go and smack them. I've also got a slinger over here on their way. I've just finished another slinger as well, and I've started constructing a settler over in my capital. But I think we should be able to give these guys a boop. Let's start with the most healthy ones over here. Kablam. Good, and then there. And then one more. Oh, we didn't even need one more. Excellent. So this Medjay here has a button that we can click called Disperse Independence, which is what we're going to use to clear these guys out. You don't get to take them over as a city unless, again, you go down the befriend route, in which case at some point you can just go and annex them, and then you would indeed have another town. Hey, plus 100 protection. That's a pretty nice bonus, and that should also complete this quest here with the Shining Land. Disperse an independent power. The fonts are a little bit weird over here. Partly, I'm using a slightly embiggened font to make it easier. I'm playing on 1080p and embiggen the font over here to try to make it a little bit more legible for people who are watching on teeny tiny little phones and have bad eyesight, just like I do. This game, by the way, does look gorgeous at 4K, but I record 1080p as a standard. So we've completed this quest. We got ourselves a militaristic attribute point. Hey, what are those things? Well, let's go and click over here. This is my leader. By the way, you can click on your leader over here, get lots of different info about them over here, including checking out the independence. Apparently, there's another independent somewhere called Longcheng. But in addition to that, what we can do is we can level up our attributes. So I got ourselves a militaristic attribute points, and these stay with us throughout the game. So free support on war, plus 5 combat strength against independent powers and city-states. That sounds pretty good. We're going to go and get that and be stronger. We're going to close this out. Thank you for the little achievement to advance that. We're going to choose our production. Oh, right. We got a bunch of production from clearing out the encampment. So it finished the settler early, which is great. And what am I going to do now? I think I'm going to immediately build another settler, actually. I think that's a great idea. Let's go and rest these units so that they can strengthen themselves again. And then we're going to figure out where we're going to settle. I think I'm going to go towards the west. We've got some resources over there. It's going to be okay. That's going to be our slinger. And then we're going to go and move with our settler as well. We did get some recommended spots. We could indeed settle there. How do I feel about that? You know what? I think, this is going towards the center of the map. Unfortunately, there's no navigable river there. That's just a regular river. We do get some huge bonuses to it. You know what? I'm going to send you directly west. I think we might take a peek over there, and we might send that one there. It'd be great to have scouted to the east, but it's not where we sent our unit because I did find that camp immediately.
No use.
All right, discipline finished. This gives us a few things. It gives us a new policy which we'll look at. It's got a wonder that you can build. We get a free army commander. It unlocks army commanders as a unit, and that. So these are social policies over here. We can make a change to this every time we unlock a new civic. I think I'm going to leave it as is. I've got tool making for production and science in the palace. We're going to unlock tons of social policy slots as well as we go forward. And choose a new civic to research. I'm going to research these two. So these two are unique to Egypt over here. If we view our tree, we get the antiquities civics and then specifically the Egyptian ones, so everyone's got their little unique sort of things over there, so in addition to the shared ones. The Egyptian ones will unlock our unique buildings of the mastaba and the mortuary temple, so I kind of like that idea. So I'm going to just go and pick one of those, and you rest until you're healed. You rest until you're healed. Actually, this one here, don't rest. Wait, can I really not get there? Oh, how fascinating. Okay, because we're going to want to go and boop that encampment as well, but we'll get back to you soon. Okay, let's move you over here. And yeah, we might end up settling there. Let's spread you out a little because there's no current threats, so that's going to be okay. And Army Commander. Okay, we're going to talk about the Army Commander after I'm done the footage. Actually, you know what we're going to do? Hang on a second. I'm going to pause the gameplay footage. Ah, sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. All right, let's talk about how Army Commanders work, what their deal is, because this is something that is new to Civ 7. In a sense, they're a little bit like a great general. Sort of, kind of. One of the things in Civ 7 is individual units, like my Medjays, my Slingers, they don't gain experience points. It's an effort to reduce some of the amount of micromanagement that happens when you have a whole lot of units. Instead, what happens is you have a commander, and by default, the commander has a radius of 1, so the tiles adjacent to itself. And the commander works as sort of a support unit. The 1 unit per tile, for example, doesn't really apply to it. You can have a military unit and a commander in the same place, the same tile. Same as what we just saw. We have a slinger and a settler in the same tile. They don't conflict with one another because they operate on sort of different layers or whatever. And we're used to this. In Civ 5, Civ 6, the same sort of thing happened. The commander will gain experience points from any combat involving units within its command range, and it can level up and develop a bunch of traits. We'll take a look at their trait tree in just a second here, but there are a large number of them. The other thing the commander does, in addition to giving bonuses, especially once you do give it those promotions, one of the things the commander does is it can pack up the units around it into itself and become a mobile army. Now, this is not an army that fights. This is not going back to Doomstacks from Civ 4, although you know I love Civ 4, and I love my Doomstacks. But what it provides is a much more convenient way to move many units across the map simultaneously, because instead of having to manage 6 different units that are bumping into each other and have trouble getting through little narrow mountain passes and things like that, you bundle them up inside of the commander, you move the commander as a single unit, and then when you get to the place where you want to do some combat, then you unpack those units, so they come back onto the map into separate tiles, and you do this. I think, and it's early days yet, but I think that is actually going to prove a very convenient quality of life, a way to reduce a certain amount of micromanagement when you're moving a bunch of army units across the way. Not only can you pack up units inside it, but the other thing you can do, because this is the other thing that's a little bit annoying when you're in a war, if you're fighting a war a little further away from your cities, is reinforcements. You've built some new units at your cities, you got to get them to the front, you got to do the right click somewhere, it takes them a while to get to the front, and then, oh, what happens if they bump into each other? Or more likely, and this happens all the time, you've right clicked to send them to a particular tile, and someone else at some point, one of your units, an enemy unit, someone wandered through that tile, and then your unit cancels its go-to path, and you got to right click it to give it a destination again. And this might happen 3 or 4 times before it finally reaches the front, which is frustrating. With commanders, you have an ability called Reinforce. What you do is either you can click the commander and click Reinforce and then choose your military unit, at the other side of your empire, or from your military unit, there's a button that's Reinforced Army. So on your military unit, you click that, then you click the commander that you want to go to. And it actually removes your unit from the map. It basically becomes invisible. It still has to travel to the front. It's not an instant teleport or anything like that. It'll take it a little while to get there, but it cannot bump into other units, get in other units' ways, cancel its go-to command because something moved in an inappropriate manner and then block something. All those frustrations are simply gone. Your unit will get to the front without being interrupted. Now, you can still move your units manually to the front, which could be potentially useful if you want to be able to maybe change your mind about something along the way, or fight some units along the way or something like that. But in those cases where you just need something to get there, and I think this is going to be especially valuable in the late game when you have lots and lots of units and might be fighting quite far away, and microing those units is so frustrating, this gives you an option. You don't have to use it, but it gives you an option for moving those units there to save you a lot of frustration, which is lovely. So the commanders, again, give bonuses, like can give combat bonuses to your units. Again, when I flip back into the game here, I will show you their upgrade trees. But then I think possibly the biggest thing for commanders is just the quality of life improvements that they optionally can provide to you. You dig? All right, I'm going to flip back in the game, resume my gameplay timer over here. And then, so we've got an army commander. If I've got a button over here to promote, and they've got 5 different trees that they can go and work their way down. Bastion, which gives a lot of various defensive bonuses. We got Assault over here, which mostly gives some attack bonuses, which I'm quite keen on, especially this range bonus over here. Logistics is all kinds of things. Hey, we get gold for units packed inside the units, sort of offsets their costs. You can also park this commander in one of your districts and then give your building production bonuses. Maneuver makes your units, your commander move a lot faster and cross the map. I think these are going to be really nice to see. And then leadership over here, we've got some other things. Hey, yields to all plus 5% to all yields in a settlement when stationed in district. So again, you could keep the army commander at home and have these passive bonuses, which are really great. And then, yeah, we've got, see this deploy army, box up army, and add to army that we can have some things reinforce and do various things. We've also got some group attack bonuses or buttons over here, which reduce some micro and actually give you slightly higher combat strength, which is all really good. Now, the commander doesn't really fight, although it does have some stats. It's not going to get insta-killed by things right now, so I'm actually going to use the commander as a bit of a scout to the east for the moment and do that. Actually, we could have bundled this settler in there, but I think the settler, actually, that's pretty good. I got some gypsum and things. I think I might, in fact, settle on this little recommended area. And you can see why it's recommending this, which, sure, you know what? I'll buy that. Let's go and send you down there. Why not? Then what are we going to do? Oh, I could show you. If we build a granary, for example, you can see I can build a granary inside of our center district over here. But again, right now, we're not really going to be building farms, pastures, and plantations in the city, so I don't think we're going to get much benefit. And the saw pit as well, it's +1 production as a base, which is fine, but it's mostly +1 production in camps and woodcutters. We are going to put a camp, I believe, on the flat desert here. I think this will be a camp, so we might get some extra benefit, but not that much. I think we're probably better off building some other things. Or, hey, what if we just went and built this wonder? Maybe. Or I could go another settler. We do have a settlement limit, although we will raise it in a few different ways. I don't know. I really should have decided that because I'm wasting some gameplay time. I hate it. Let's build a galley and explore the seas. Sure, why not? And you're just going to scoot around this way. And I'm going to move you here for some vision. I'm going to move you up here. Some vision, and we might end up settling there. We'll take a look in just a second. You go over that way. Fine, and thank you. Pop over there. All right. And yeah, you know, I don't hate this spot over here. It's far enough away. We're not going to get too much in the way of overlap. It's got some good resources. Excellent. Park you there. You get the Jeanette. Okay. We're going to talk about this, and we're probably going to eat into our gameplay timer a little bit as we talk about the difference between a city and a town. In a town doesn't have a production queue. Really weird. You can purchase things. So if you got gold, you can purchase buildings and units in a town. It just doesn't have a production queue. It does have food, and it will grow, and by default, it actually gets a 50% growth bonus. Towns grow very quickly. And then when you grow, you will still get to pop down a unit population on a tile as a rural district. The other thing that happens, once a town reaches size 7, you can choose to focus the town into something else, which dramatically changes how it works. Again, we got a couple of little font glitches here, partially because I'm using a different default font, and it is one of the known issues in the current preview build, which is not going to be the version of the game that gets released. There's going to be a bunch of things that are going to change visually and everything. Anyway, going back over here. What happens when you specialize a town is the town will actually stop growing. It will be, whenever you decide, you can specialize as a 7, or you can let it keep growing because it grows very quickly. Once you specialize a town, you know what? I'm going to pause the gameplay for a second. We're going to talk over here because I just want to babble. Once you specialize a town, the town's food gets sent to nearby cities, technically connected cities. What is a connected city? They can be connected via trade range, via road. If they're on the coast, then they get connected with other coastal things. It's a whole thing. But a town can be connected to one or more cities, and it will send that food, dividing that food with its connected cities, which means towns cause cities to grow faster. The concept is, if you think about something like London, especially modern day London, London doesn't grow food. Instead, a multitude of towns outside of London send food to London, and London is all urban buildings, right? Urban commercial buildings, those sorts of things. And that's what's going to happen with your towns and cities as you go forward in the game. Here in this Antiquities era, because you don't have that many buildings available, and you've got, your population is growing faster, even your cities, even our capital in here has lots of rural districts. But as we move forward in the game, our city is going to become more and more urban districts. It's going to be buildings that are going to be displacing the rural population. Now, again, every time we build a urban district on top of a rural district, we do get that unit of population back, and we can place it on another tile. And the other thing that's going to happen, that is not the case yet, but is going to happen, is a lot of the buildings we're going to get are going to have specialist slots. We are going to be, when we get a unit of population, either because we displaced a rural district or because our city grew, rather than plop it down on an empty tile and create a new rural district, we can instead put that unit of population to work a specialist slot inside of an urban district. And these specialist slots do a lot. Now those populations, they still consume food, right? They still consume 2 food per population, and they still consume some happiness. Happiness is another resource in your cities that each population sort of kind of eats, especially the urban population. So creating a specialist in an urban district consumes food and happiness rather than producing raw resources as if it were a rural district. But those specialists generate extra yields tightly linked to specialist slots, tightly linked to adjacency bonuses on buildings. And this is especially valuable on buildings that create science or culture, for example. And some of the buildings will even create happiness, which means putting a specialist in there rather than lower your happiness might give you a net happiness. And this is the real value of cities. Cities become massive science and cultural powerhouses by virtue of specialists. Now, those specialists aren't working the land and therefore aren't producing food. That food instead is going to come from linked towns. What is your ratio? By the way, so to make a town into a city simply costs some gold. Also, you're going to say, wait, towns don't have a building queue. What happens to their production? Well, a town's production, their hammers, gets converted into gold. Now, that gold can be used to purchase buildings, including in towns themselves. Now, it's not the same efficiency. I think is it 4 to 1? Does it cost 4 gold basically for every hammer of production? Something like that. So you lose sort of the efficiency of the production, but gain substantially more flexibility. And also, you can use the gold to just convert a town into a city. How many, what ratio of towns versus cities you want? I don't know. The game says, oh, keep about 1 to 1 in its Civilopedia. But I'm sure people will find all sorts of different optimizations, which also may vary based on what civilization you're playing. For example, Rome gets +1 production in a city for each town. So Rome might be highly centralized. 1 city, 100 towns. Okay, not 100, but half dozen or a dozen towns to just 1 city, which would be insane. Whereas other people might spread it out more. Here's one of the other things that's very important to note. Your commitment of turning towns into cities is not permanent. When you advance to a new age, your capital stays a city. Your other cities all revert back to towns. So you can then immediately reset them, make them into cities again. But you could choose and change which one of your settlements you leave as towns and which one you turn into cities for a variety of different reasons. There's some flexibility there. So what you use as a city in the Antiquities era doesn't have to be the same thing in the Exploration and the Modern era, which is very nifty keen. Basically, I think, and I suspect, we're going to come up with all kinds of strategies that are going to be different at release, different from a year into the game, that is different 5 years into the game in terms of what the optimization is. But one of the big things is mostly, I think, as long as your cities have enough food to keep growing, you're probably going to want to turn more of your towns into cities, and that'll sort of be your thing. There are different specializations you can do for towns that give different optimizations based on their landscape, but we're not going to worry about that currently too much until we look at it a little bit further. So the big thing is we have created a new settlement with our settler. It is a town. Right now it is just in growth mode so it's not contributing anything to my capital right now, but it is growing 50% faster. It's going to grow very quickly. And if this new settlement, if I'm planning on leaving it as a town, most likely I'm going to want to optimize it for food production, because when a town reaches size 7 or beyond, you can choose whenever you want it, but once it's at least size 7, you can specialize it, at which point the town stops growing, but it sends all its food to a connected city. And so I really like the idea of specializing my towns for food production so they can feed the cities as much as possible. If there's a town that's in a landscape that is bad for food, but really good for production, that's not the end of the world, because that will give you lots of gold. But in my opinion, a highly productive town is a good candidate for turning into a city. and then hopefully we feed that new city from other towns. That's my thinking right now. That may change as we go forward. Anyway, let's flip back into the game, resume the timer. There we go. We got 2 minutes of gameplay left. So Jonet over here is on Growing Town, which again is default and the only option at this point. And we could spend some money for some units and maybe some buildings later on, and we may indeed do that. For now, we're just going to go in advance. Grow Town. Oh, we do have a +1 population growth over here. One of the things the town also does is it lets you capture these resources. So for example, even though, oh, actually, no, this will do over here. We're going to expand to this tile over here, which is going to give a little bit of food to Jonet. It's also going to go and give us some dates. So if I go and click on that, we can now, and we're going to get a little prompt for it, but I'm going to go to immediately resource allocation. We have dates. Now that is went and applied itself to Janet immediately. I can go and unslot that over here. There are, in fact, 3 different types of resources over here, but we're only going to talk about 2 right now, which is city bonuses, which can only be slotted into cities, and bonus resources, which can be slotted anywhere. So I've got these dates. I can put it wherever I want. It does tell me that it's from Janet. It gets +2 food, +2 happiness. I could go and put that in my capital right now, but I think I will, in fact, leave it here, especially since, in theory, it's getting 50% more because it is a growing town, so it's going to grow faster. And, you know, it's our newest settlement, and I do want it to grow quite quickly. Narrative choice over here, date fight. The sweet, sticky scent of dates seems to be everywhere in discarded pits lined the streets. Citizens grumble that the Medjay spend more time eating than they do patrolling. Borrow the Medjay from the date stores. I get 50 extra gold right now, or spit out a date pit +50 happiness towards the next celebration. Again, celebrations are basically golden ages that have a benefit depending on what your government is, and that accrues from your global happiness over here. I think I'm going to take the money in this case, which does give me quite a bit of cash. Not quite enough, almost, but not quite enough for one of the buildings that I may indeed build over here. You can see, actually, the granary had previously said it was going to give +1 food, but now it says +2, and that's because it does give +1 from plantations, including this date plantation over here. So that's quite handy. Okay, our commander has spotted this is a enemy or an independent village scout. Commander cannot attack. It can be attacked, but the scout can't actually attack us, so we're just going to go ahead and ignore that and do a little bit more scooting a boot. Okay. Well, that's annoying. All right. A bunch of my units are still healing. Actually, you are done here. So let's move you up here. Let's move you up there. No, that's my timer ended. Quick, flip out, Quill. No more gameplay. Okay. We're going to go and stop that. This is going to be the end of the gameplay for this particular video. Again, I will be releasing 6 videos with 10 minutes of actual gameplay each, plus some more random little conversation and squiggly squaggles on the map over on the screen over here as we make some other discussions. So I'm going to have to divert my units back over to this sort of east of my capital and deal with those barbarians. There's clearly a hostile independent village over there that is sending some units my way. I do have enough money to purchase a military unit in my capital, which I may very well do. The capitals do have a certain amount of hit points, like in Civ 5, like in Civ 6. Your actual settlements do have a little bit of defensive stats. Someone can't just enter them and immediately kill them, but they're not very powerful, especially without walls. So we're definitely going to want to get some military units over there. We do have a commander nearby, which is actually going to be great because we can probably go organize a little bit of group with some of our troops around the commander, feed some experience points into the commander, and start to give it some of those promotions, which is going to be really handy dandy. By the way, one of the reasons Rome is so awesome is that every time a commander, which has a different name, the Roman one is unique. I think it's called a legate, or I guess probably legate or something like that because it's Latin. But anyway, for every 3 promotions a legate has, it's got a button where it just can spawn a settlement. It just gets these settlement charges. It can build cities by itself rather than have to use settlers. Rome also has, well, Rome or Augustus has like +1 settlement limits. Oh, I didn't talk about that. So on the previous screen, somewhere around here, we had a number which started at 1/3, and then when I put down my other settlement, became 2/3. There is a settlement limit in the game, but this is first of all, this is a soft cap. If you go over it, you just get a happiness penalty. It's perfectly fine to go over it, and there's a ton of different technologies and different things like that increase your settlement limit. I have not felt too restricted by that at all. Of course, every version of Civ has tried to do something to prevent you from, or dissuading you from doing infinite amounts of city spam, because it leads to kind of degenerate, unfun gameplay if that becomes optimal. Civ 5, it was tightly linked to your happiness limits, for example. In Civ 4, it led to a bunch of corruption, which made it harder for you to maintain a positive treasury and maintain your research rates, for example, right? So that's all done that. Here, what it is a settlement limit, which is it's a lot more clear, easier to understand. It's a little less fuzzy than, oh, my economy is no good and I'm not sure what's going on over here. Again, you can totally go over that limit if you want, and in fact, it's probably, I suspect, especially in the early game, kind of going to be optimal to do that a little bit. But we'll see. Again, that'll be something that comes with experience, and I'm sure it's going to depend very much on what Civ are you playing for different reasons, and what is sort of the landscape of your game looking like, whether you want to go and exceed that or not. But again, lots of different techs and various things like that boost that settlement limit. And I have not felt restricted by it at all. Usually it's, well, I can't, it's more the restrictions more, I can't build a settler right now because I got to build some military units to defend myself. Or I don't want to build a settler right now because there's these like 2 buildings I really want to build first, which will give us a bigger boost, and then I'll go back to building a settler. So, but of course, that we'll see once we get a little bit more experience into the game, whether or not that feels particularly limiting. Yeah, so I'd wanted to talk about that. I talked about we got our resources. I can't remember if there's something else that I'd wanted to address in this video. I'll give it a little bit of think in between. But yeah, other than that, hey, I do hope you've subscribed to the channel. And as always, dropping a like on videos makes a huge difference to the YouTube algorithm. That is much appreciated. And I'll see you next time for another 10-minute section of gameplay and a whole lot of babbling. Bye-bye.